JJ, how are you, brother?
Good. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. And just for the record, so we're on the same page. JJ just had to run home. We had some technical difficulties in his office. I pushed him to just get this content out. Sometimes it's less about someone's background and more about the content that they provide. So that's where we're going today. Just wanted to give that clarification on so JJ's a perfectionist. So anyway, I'm just going to say that, and then we're going to keep going.
Let's do it.
JJ, business planning. It's what we're talking about today,
Yeah.
right? It's December, or it's not December yet. It's close to December. You've got, uh, our industry, whether or not it's lenders, realtors, branch managers, divisional, regional, whatever you want to say. Everybody always kind of gets motivated towards I would call it the middle of the year and the end of the year to do this, which also means that it can be very just process. Here we go again. We're going to, it's almost like I look at a lot of people's goal planning as it's almost like a New Year's resolution, right? In the
Right.
sense that they get motivated, they get inspired for a moment in time, and then they don't do anything with it. You, having coached me, I was just telling someone yesterday, probably the best coach that I've ever had. Your business planning is something, first of all, for you that sticks. So you don't view it as you're not checking a box when you go through your business planning. You believe in it. And because you believe in it, because it's important, it's something that you review and you review and you review, and you end up actually executing on the items that you put together. My first question for you, and I probably just gave you the answer by stating that, like, if you look at an LO, why is business planning important for people that have heard about doing it or they've done it 20 times and they haven't made progress with it? Like, why do you think it's so important, and why do you think it's so important today?
I think the business plan in itself is important because it's a roadmap to production, right? And as a loan officer, you're looking, okay, well, I want to do X in production, and without a roadmap to get there, then it's just a goal, it's just a dream. So the business planning part is going to give you those key pieces that you need to be able to make it successful. So, like, how many phone calls do I need to make? How many business partners do I need to have? How many leads do I need? How many of those do I call? Do I convert? How many of them are bad leads, meaning they don't qualify or they're not being referred properly? And so it gives us a chance to look back at our business before and take that data and take from it what worked, what didn't work, so that you don't keep doing the same thing over and over again. And I think for me, the reason I love it so much is it gives me a chance to reset and not do the same thing over and over again. And I think all of us have been in that situation where we put down the goals. I want to do X, and then you just keep doing the same things over and over again, wondering why you're not hitting that mark, instead of really looking at it like a holistic plan of how you're going to get to X through the map and through actions to get there.
Okay. I'm thinking of people listening. Like, I view you as like a ninja of all of this. Like, someone that's listening to this that's clueless on how to start on, like what would you say is what are the first three questions that someone has to even just to get started on business planning? If you're let's just talk in the role of a loan officer to start.
Okay. Then, and this might sound so different than what people might think. I would say, who do I want to be next year? Who do I want to be next year? Why? And where do I want to go with that? Where do I want to go with that? So, for instance, who do I want to be next year? Next year, I want to be a very intentional, useful leader and coach. A very intentional, very useful leader and coach. Why? Because I have a responsibility to bring value and be useful, and not just, sit here and have a title and do nothing about that. And I guess I have a little sore spot in that because I just see too much of that, and I've had too much of that in my life. And where do I want to go with it? So then it's like, okay, well, I want to go to here with it. Maybe it's I want to have a $1 billion or $100 million or whatever. At that point, once I know who I want to be next year, why I want to be there, then I can have clarity of where it is that I want to take it. And it allows you to have some understanding and excitement around the business plan itself. Planning is boring. Goal creating is fun and creative, and that's why people love doing it. But a goal is just the vision aspect of it, where the planning is the action aspect of it. And I think so many people don't love the planning because they've had goals that they haven't achieved. But once you have goals and you put tactical action behind those goals and you've watched them come to fruition, the more you do that, the more you're going to want to do the planning aspect of it.
So I literally today, just so people listening understand this. I mean, I've been a coach. I've done business planning for 12 plus years. And I've gotten away from it a little bit, right? And you sent me the impact process for business planning for an LO, and I found myself at 4:30 in the morning. I'm working through it, and I'm good for the first 30 minutes, and then I get bored with it because I to your exact point, you start having to answer questions that you got to think through. You don't really want to think through them, but it goes back, like when you talk about who do I want to be and why do I want to be that, and then what does that actually look like? It reinvigorated me to, even though I got bored with it after 30 minutes, going, you can't get bored. Like, this is your life. This is your business. You have to go all in to get this done. And I honestly today felt, I wish people actually knew inside of how I felt, because it's like, it's truly, I felt like I had done something today for my future self by doing the planning that I was doing this morning. And that was literally about, I think by the time I said and done it, that was about an hour's worth of work, and I still have a lot to do with it. So thank you for saying that. Thank you for sharing that. When you see people business plan with the amount of coaching students that you've had throughout the years, what would you say, like if you looked at the top, like why people fail and why people succeed with it? If we just went with like failures first, what would you say?
The why? I would say because they don't review, they do it and then they put it away and then they don't look at it again until it's too late, That's the first, right? When we talk about time management, rule number one, print your calendar. So I would say when I'm done with it, I laminate it and I put it in my little folio that I carry everywhere I go with me, so I can pull it out and look at it. And then I have a weekly reminder that reminds me to look at it every week. Am I doing the activities? Am I doing the actions? Am I doing the things that I had said that I was going to do? And it's an integral part too. I think also they have like full focus planners, journals, things like that, that will keep you very focused on a day-to-day, that we use, that I think is super helpful. And I don't think people do that. So more accountability around what they want to do. And I think on top of that, having some accountability partners to make sure you're doing what you said you're going to do. So that's where coaching and having coaches and sharing those ideas with other people is going to have a certain level of accountability, where I think people don't want to fail and let other people down inherently. So when you're sharing those and you have that accountability partner, you're going to be less likely. So it's really just immersing yourself into what you said you're going to do, and not just doing it and setting it away and hoping that you're going to lose weight because you said, I want to lose weight.
It's really simple, right? It's like, it's not easy, but it's simple. And when you talk about laminating, I mean, it's like, I preached lamination. I preached it. It's like, I mean, I should have a contract for whoever pays for the laminations of the world. Like, I should get a piece of it, but I stopped doing it.
Totally.
Right? Like, it's amazing that you're talking. I mean,
and the other thing too, like you said today, you're like, man, I started doing it after about an hour and a half, you got tired or bored. Well, the whole point of this is like I do it in like 3 separate sections, where I go somewhere offsite, I go somewhere cool, maybe it's country club or resort, something like that. And I do it in parts. So maybe, one part is data analytics, and I got all my stuff. I printed out all my leads so I can work through all that stuff. And then the next part is going to be vision. So then I'm going to work on all the creative stuff. Like, what is it that I want to do? I'm going to work on my 3-year vision, my 5-year vision. You can't really do it all at once. You got to take a bite of the elephant at a time. You have to take each part of the plan at a time. And then the third time is me looking at all of it. Okay, does this all go together? Is it what I want to do? Is the whole picture come together as it did in the individual parts themselves. So really breaking it out will make it more fun to do, make it more specific to data analytics, creativity, and pulling it together, where I think a lot of people just try and do it all at once, knock it out. And then the last part is not putting action steps in there, not putting the processes to get there. Meaning, I want this many leads, I want this many closings. Cool. Well, how many phone calls do you need to make? Well, I don't know. Well, what are your conversions on those leads? Well, I don't know. And I know this because I literally just had this meeting with one of my LOs before this meeting. And I said, cool, we need to make sure that those all align with what you want to do so that you can focus on those measurements every week. Did I make enough calls this week? Did I convert the way I was supposed to this week? So you can make those course adjustments.
That was one of the questions I was going to ask. For someone that's never done this before, or they just don't, I mean, the amount of people, even the people that, profess to know that they know their conversion ratios, and they know, it's amazing how many people it's amazing how many people don't know their numbers. It's amazing how many people say they know their numbers, but they actually don't know their numbers, right? So if you take the insecurity of not knowing your numbers off the table and just everyone admits, like everyone's got a clean slate to say, I don't know my numbers. How do you start that, right? Because I mean, I think what you and I have talked about in the past is business planning is about getting a rough draft and starting, right? Like that's the key. It's about starting with, you don't know exactly what you don't know if you have to make 10 calls to get one lead, if it's 20 calls to get one lead, if it's 5 loan apps equal one deal. You don't know that until you start measuring it. So based on your experience, you want to give people, like, if you wanted to let's say you're trying to close 5 loans a month, what do you think is what's the metrics, just so people have a starting point for how to get to that number?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're trying to close a certain amount of units, and what I find is most people, like I didn't track my leads, so to speak. When I think about when I first started in the business, I didn't track my leads. I didn't go, okay, well, I've got this many leads last month, and how many of them did I take applications on? All I ever looked at was how many people said yes and how many people closed and did I get paid on. And so it really goes back to the data that you need and the resources and where to get it. So I would start with the data you can get, how many closed deals you got. And most anyone can go to their managers and ask them, hey, can you pull the data on me? Meaning, in the mortgage space, obviously this is different for everybody, but in the mortgage space, we can easily run a report on, if you closed a deal, we can tell you, well, how many deals did you also submit? How many deals didn't close? And that's going to be really great data. So how many deals did they say yes to? How many deals actually closed? And then of course you want to go back and hopefully you have a spreadsheet or you have a sticky note a regime or something where you can grab all the sticky notes and put them down. And it might be labor intensive, but it's going to be really good motivation to maybe get a better process to track those leads like we have. And then know how many leads that you have, and then count all the pre-approvals. So people know their pre-approvals. I think everyone puts their pre-approvals somewhere. So how many leads, how many pre-approvals, how many people said yes, how many people closed. I think starting there and utilizing your resources, either management or reporting, to get all that data, that alone, if they can just get that, will be huge. If they can't get how many leads they have, then even just knowing how many it takes to turn in and how many they closed is going to be very valuable. Then as they go forward for the next quarter, 90 days, they can start tracking, well, how many am I getting and how many of them are actually turning into pre-approval? So they can fill that gap as they go forward. And that would be one of their goals in their goal plan, to start tracking their leads and start tracking their pre-approvals to get that ratio. Because once you know that ratio, you know exactly how many calls, exactly how many leads to close exactly how many loans anytime you want.
And I think people underestimate how exciting it is and how gratifying it is. It's probably a better word. And how like you feel like you are making progress when you can start measuring results. There's just something to be said about, I mean, historically, by the way, wouldn't you say that the closing ratios on average from lead to a funded loan is 15 to 20%?
Yeah, I would think average probably could be less than that. I would say generously at 15. If we're talking nationwide average, I would say top performer probably that 20% and up.
Okay. And most people would assume that they're at 40 or 50% if they don't track their stuff, right?
Yeah, of course. We think everyone says yes, until you
Right.
start counting, you don't know. It's like the whole way, like I think the number's like 60% from what I've read. If you track and measure your goals, you have a 60% chance of hitting them more.
Yeah.
And it makes sense. If you step on the scale every day and it tells you, like, if you're losing weight, you're going to be motivated to eat apples that day. If you're not losing weight, then you're going to be motivated to eating apples that day. But if you never step on the scale, you're just going to be motivated to fill your stomach and feel good and hope it tastes good. You're not going to be motivated one way or the other unless you're measuring it.
Yeah. Love it. People do, you touched on in the beginning, because I just think it's an important differentiator. When you talk about goals versus business, like versus business planning, break that down in a little more detail for me. Like what's a goals, just kind of high level?
Yeah, goals, the vision and end result, the end result vision. That's what I think a goal, that's what I feel a goal is your end result vision. Red Ferrari in the driveway, on the sand with my wife for 2 weeks in Tahiti, a $100,000 check, whatever that is for you, my kids going to college, whatever that is the end goal vision. That's the prize. And it's important because you get all of your excitement not when you receive it. You get your excitement getting after it and achieving it. And people forget that, or some people don't know that's literally where you get all of the chemicals that make you feel good. It isn't actually getting the goal. It's like when you get a new car and you get it, it's only cool for like a month or two, and then it's just like, now it's an old car. But man, what you did to get that new car or get that new job or hit that goal was a lot of fun to get there.
I always think of I always talk about like purpose versus process. To me, the purpose is the goal and the process is the business planning.
I love it. Mine,
Right?
I would say vision and action. So they're synonyms and work right in there. But I think sometimes people get them confused. You can't have one, in my opinion, without the other. I don't know how one is going to achieve a goal without action unless it's just pure luck.
Yeah. And if you're sitting there doing the same process over and over again, hating every minute of it, it's like, that's great. You're just running. I mean, you're just doing something that you hate. So anyway, there's so many tools out there to do business planning. I've got complex ones. I've got ones that quite frankly are overly simple. Is there a business planning tool that you use? My guess is you're going to tell me it's the one that you guys created. Is that what you use to do the business planning now?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and the reason being is, same, we had all used complicated ones, oversimplified ones. And what we wanted to do was have one that was simple in its completion, that asked questions that other plans didn't ask, like what's working, what's not working. I mean, just starting there is important. But before we start, let's plan this goal and surround it around things that aren't working for us right now, where we're not really good at, or we're not really bringing us any joy. So yeah, the one that we have comprised, it's the perfect amount of simplicity with the tactical, making it tactically complicated enough to be able to give you the plan that you need to put in place. And that's why I love it. And what's cool is you can print it out as a loan officer, you can print it out as a divisional, you can print it out as any type of business person. And so for folks like us, you'd need to do one for each business. I'd have to do one for impact, one as a loan officer, and then one as a divisional, because they're three separate plans and they all pose three completely separate paths and questions as well.
It's one of the things I was going to ask you. And I'm sure that, like, for me, I came in and told Eric, my business partner, I'm like, I need two different plans, right? I need one for my bigger picture role, divisional role, and then I need one as a loan officer. Would you say that it was the first? I mean, it's funny. I'm 50 years old. I've done this for a long time. I think I know a lot. It was the first time that it ever crossed my mind that I actually need two different business plans.
Yeah, because I've done it where I've tried to put them on the same one, and it's just it gets convoluted, and you're trying to come up with a clear plan. You don't want it convoluted. So, man, if I'm trying to do this over here, then great. I need to just focus on answering those questions and coming up with a path for that. And then obviously for a completely different business or different role, do the same thing. And yeah, does it take twice as much work? Well, yeah, of course it does. But you have 2 jobs. That takes twice as much work as well. So you've got to take twice as much time in preparing, twice as much time to think about vision and goals, twice as much time. I think that's good for people to hear that. I'll say, I want more, and I want to do these things and have these aspirations. Just understand it comes with, twice as much responsibility, think time, and preparation too.
Love it. I think you started off too with I've got a few more questions for you, but if you're going to take the time to do business planning, right? Like it's not something, I think all of us get motivated and inspired at a moment in time. And it's like, you're trying to do it in between calls or something. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like it just doesn't work.
No.
What are 3 things that you have to do before you start to business plan? I mean, like I look at it like getting a colonoscopy, right? Like you gotta prepare for that sucker, right? Like,
yeah,
I mean, I'm trying to make light of it, but it's true, right?
Yeah. Number 1 is I need to block it off on the calendar, and it needs to be clear. So I will block off, an entire day to focus on it and have a place where I'm going to go. I like to do it in the lobby of the Waldorf because it's like I feel like I'm on vacation. Towards the end of the day, I can order a martini. They're looking at me like, who's this crazy guy who sits in the lobby? Does he actually have a hotel room? No, I don't have a hotel room, but I paid for valet. So I like to have that done and the time blocked. So I literally have nothing to do but that. Then it's data gathering time. I know all the data that I'm going to need in order to be able to start provoking thought and answering questions, So that's going to be lead data. That's going to be production data. That's going to be, loan officer data, my personal production, all the data that I might need. I'll get all of it and probably too much of it. P&Ls, financial data, everything that I possibly need. And I think those are the 2 most important things. And then I think just coming with an open mind and vision of those 3 questions. Who do I want to be next year? Why do I want to be that person next year? And where do I want to go with it? So if you have the data and you have the time and you have, let's say, the business plan empty in your hand with those questions, then you can get started. Now you can get going and have some fun with it. Because and I just say, I'm not leaving until this whole thing's at least a rough draft is done. And when I'm done, I'll have, things that I don't have answers to yet. I'll highlight them. And then that sets me up for the next time I sit down and do it.
And share it.
Yep.
Got it. Are you going to, I'm sorry you're going to kill me for just saying it, but I'll do it because I already asked you earlier. Are you going to share this tool?
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. We're going to share the tool.
So that answer is yes. So yeah. I can use it too for the division.
Yeah, you sure can, buddy. It's like, listen, a lot of the tools that we're going to be doing is sharing is caring.
Yeah.
But I think, man, it's super important to just help people get it out there. And we find it super effective. So why wouldn't we want to share it?
Givers gain. And if you want more of it, then you can sign up, right?
100%. I love it. If you want the accountability.
JJ, I always I appreciate your time. I love you. You could say I'm doing this for you. I say I do this for myself because I learn every time I talk to you. So thanks a ton. I would just leave it too with everybody. It's like, if you think you've done too much business planning or you've been through it and you don't, it's like you don't need to do it. It's just to me, it is you are a rudderless ship without business planning is the only way to look at your business if you don't take the time to figure out where you want to go. Right.
Couldn't agree more, buddy.
Yeah.
So you don't want to be drifting.
JJ, thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Thank you, buddy.